Hello, and welcome to the 2021 bee season. I have the pleasure of working with so many of you on a regular basis, but for those of you I have not yet met, I'm Nicole Ditto, local sponsorship manager of the Scripps National Spelling Bee program. We've all been on quite the journey lately. In a year where life has looked very different and so many have experienced unforeseen challenges, it's truly inspiring to partner with you and your organizations on an opportunity that delivers joy. We've come together with the shared mission of offering the special tradition of the bee program in your community, and we've discovered new and creative ways to navigate this program. Our sponsors have displayed incredible patience, kindness, and adaptability throughout this process, and for that, we truly thank you. As we move along through the webinar, I'll first run through some housekeeping items. After providing a few updates, my colleague Tyler Hyde will walk you through our new online testing platform. The 2021 bee season is upon us. Our team is hard at work planning for the return of the national finals this year, and we are here to support you as your team plans for your upcoming local bees. Throughout February and March, you, our sponsors, conduct events that determine which speller from your area will join us for the national competition. To best support coordinators from your participating schools, as well as to keep the bee team informed, I have an important request. If you have not already done so, please complete your local program form, which is available within your spellingbee.com sponsor portal. The information on that form provides guidance around the qualification structure, deadlines, and plans for your area, and helps minimize questions that you may otherwise receive from local coordinators. I have one more request to make of you, which will help us as we gear up for local bee season. This Wednesday, you will receive a brief but very important email from us with a survey to collect information about your local bee plans. Your responses will help us to provide you with the materials you'll need for your upcoming bees. Please take a few moments to complete and return that survey by next Monday, January 18th. On the topic of bee materials, we will automatically ship 4 copies of the final local bee list 2 weeks prior to your final bee event. This year, you will also receive an email with a PDF copy of the final local bee list, as well as a digital copy of the 2021 prize booklet. Stay tuned for more local bee season information in upcoming editions of the sponsor newsletter. We appreciate that you've taken time today to join us for this session. We also want to remind you that we've scheduled time this Thursday evening, January 14th, in which we will host another webinar geared towards the audience of district and county level coordinators. If you plan to utilize the online testing platform for an intermediary level of competition in your area, and you have coordinators who will be assisting you in that effort, please invite them to Thursday's training webinar. You can do so by forwarding the email invitation that was sent to you last Thursday. At the end of this webinar, we will dedicate time to answering questions. You are welcome to submit questions throughout this session by clicking the Q&A link at the bottom of your screen. Because our time is limited today, our focus at the end of the presentation will be to answer questions that are generally beneficial to the broader group. If you'd like assistance with something that is more specific to your local program, we'd be happy to follow up with you after this webinar. As always, you can also reach out to me directly for guidance. And with that, let's jump into the exciting portion of this webinar. Tyler, are you ready to walk us through the highlights of our new online testing platform?
Yes, I am, now that I'm unmuted. Thank you, Nicole, and thank all of you, our sponsors, for joining us this afternoon. We are so excited to share our new online testing platform with you. Our team has put a lot of heart and soul into it, and we're so proud to provide a resource that will allow you to host your local area program, no matter the circumstances in your area. So let's go ahead and get started. We had a couple of you submit questions ahead of time that were so helpful when I was putting together this walkthrough. And one of the first ones was, how do the schools load their winners into their program, especially if they do an oral bee not using the online testing platform at the school level? So I'd like to start off our webinar by talking about School Champion registration. It is a tool that's been available for you sponsors to use for years, but you might not have used it before. However, this year it's a requirement for sponsors who want to use the online testing platform at any level. So how it works in layman's terms is that the school champion registration form will talk to the online testing platform, and it will automatically add your school champions to your online testing platform for your sponsors. So let me go ahead and see about giving you a little tour. Okay, so this should look very familiar. This is our sponsor portal. When you log in at spellingbee.com, this is what you should see. This is our test account. So I am first going to show you how you can set up the school champion registration form for your schools. So we're going to go right here to my Spelling Bee program. Then I'm going to go up here to program specific info. And this is your program specific form. So you may have already filled this out. We, as Nicole just said, we encourage you to fill it out as soon as you can. It is how your schools learn everything that they need to know about your program, from dates and deadlines and your competition structure. So you may have already filled this out, and if you did, but you didn't use school champion registration, I'm going to show you how you can add that. So first, we're going to unlock your form if you've already submitted it, and that will allow you to make any edits that you need to. I'll show you first, you've got this section about the Final Local Spelling Bee, which we would love to hear about your Final Local Bee plans. This next section is information about your structure. So your school coordinators will know how their school champion can qualify for your program. And this third section right here is what we want to talk about. So I have already set this up for our test account, but what we're going to do is you're going to want to say that, yes, you do want the Scripps National Spelling Bee to collect your champion registrations. You're going to want to add a deadline so that your school bee coordinators will know when they need to make those changes by. Here is where you will include how many students advance from the school level to your next level of competition. It will likely be 1, maybe 2. I have 6 here because I'm using this as an example that I'll show you later. So that might be a little bit more than you would need. And then you've got some other questions down here. And this is the bulk of what the school champion registration form will ask for from your school coordinators. So moving along, we've got dates and deadlines, very important to include. Any restrictions about your local program, whether that's minimum grade for participation, logos. And then as the Bees social media coordinator, I would love for you to include your social media handles for us as well. That's very helpful so that we can share all the stories about your awesome champions throughout Final Local Bee season. So you're going to want to make sure that you submit this form. And now I am going to flip over for just a second, and I'm going to show you the school side of this. So you can see exactly what your schools will see once you have enabled school champion registration. So going back to sharing. Okay, so this is our teacher portal. It's what our teachers see when they log in at spellingbee.com. You can see here on the left side, they now have a school champion registration menu button. So I'm going to click on that. And you're going to see this is school champion registration. We've already put some dummy data in here. And how it works is that your school bee coordinator will be able to see how many students they can move on to the next level of your competition. And then they can click to register their champion. So I'm going to really quickly, so that you can see this in real time, I'm going to put in all of this information and an email address. Now it's very important that if the, can't really type and talk at the same time. It's very important that if your schools have already used the online testing platform, they will see instructions to be sure that that this information matches what's in their school champion registry, or that this information matches what's already in their account for the online testing platform. That's just so that the school champion registration form and the online testing platform can talk to each other and recognize, excuse me. So I'm going to go ahead and submit this. Okay. And now you can see that a new champion has shown up here. So like I said, with school champion registration, with this form, basically, once a school has registered a champion, it's going to do one of two things. So if the school has already used the online testing platform for their school program, the online testing platform will see all of that information and it will automatically match them to their online testing platform account. And then they will appear in your side of the online testing platform so that you can add them to online tests. If the school has not used the online testing platform, so that's getting to what the sponsor question that came in earlier, that's completely fine. If they did an oral spelling bee and they haven't used the online testing platform, it's a little different though. So the online testing platform will automatically create accounts for any school champions who don't already have them. However, we recognize that not all of you are using the online testing platform for every level of your competition. Your school champions, for instance, might go to a District B that's run via a virtual platform instead. So in order for your school champions to show up in your online testing platform, you need to have registered in the platform, created a test, and then added spellers to that test. And that will spark the online testing platform to send out emails to your students. So we're going to go through all of that right now. Let me really quickly, here we go. Okay, now let me switch back over to our sponsor account. And I will show you how we get into the online testing platform as a sponsor. So, all right. So back to our sponsor portal. We are going to now set up an account in the online testing platform. So you'll see here online testing platform that showed up maybe in November in your sponsor portal. So you might not have seen it yet. You have 3 different pages here, access, which we'll talk about. The how-to includes tutorials, it includes some videos. It will also include the recording of this webinar by the end of the week. And then we have email templates, which this includes all of the communication templates that are also available within the online testing platform. We just put them here for you as well. And we'll go over some of these in a minute. So we have access here. This has a little bit of instruction, but basically what we want to do is click on this. This is the only way to register for a sponsor account in the online testing platform. So I'm going to click this register button, and then you'll see that it automatically recognizes me as being part of the Leading Daily sponsor, which is our test sponsor account. So I can fill in my information here. And do this again, and then create a password for myself. Now, just to be clear, the online testing platform is a separate system than spellingbee.com and your sponsor portal. So you do have to register for the online testing platform. However, if you would like, for ease of use, you can use the same email and password for the online testing platform that you do for your sponsor account. So then I would click register. I've already registered this account, so I'm not going to do that. But I would click register and it would take me to a login screen. Okay, so I'm going to say login. I'm going to add my information and the password that I just created. And I'm going to say submit. Now, here is, it's asking me for a verification code that it says was just sent to my email address. And that is because we have chosen to use 2-factor authentication for our online testing platform. That's just for security purposes because you do have students' information available to you. So I just went into my email and got this 6-digit code. It's always a different code, so you don't have to save this anywhere. Anytime that you log in, it's going to give you a new one. And the verification code is only valid for 5 minutes. So if you ask for it and then you walk away, that's fine. Just log in again and it'll give you another one. So I'm going to submit that code, and now I'm in the online testing platform. So I'm going to give you a little tour. One of the questions that we had was about templates for sharing information with with parents and teachers. So you'll see here on your left side, we have this templates button. This includes all of the communication templates that were also available in your sponsor portal. We've separated them by district and then county and then final local B. And basically you can just click on any of these and you'll see there is some bracketed text. And so what you need to do is just go through, fill in the bracketed text with your local sponsor details. And you can do that by saying copy to clipboard, and then it copies it and you can put it in any kind of either a Word document or your preferred email system. So that is templates. Now I am really quickly going to show you if I can find it. Working with too many screens here. Okay, I am going to show you. Okay, we do have, so you have those communication templates. However, to make it easy, we have also created emails that will be automatically sent from the online testing platform. So these are the instances when the online testing platform will automatically send an email. So they will send an email to the parent and the school B coordinator when you add a student to a test. So when there is this test assigned for them to take, that will automatically go out from the system. When a test window opens, the parent of the child will get a notification saying, hi, your test is now available to take. Go to this link and log in. And then we also have an email going out to the parent 1 day before the test closes for final local B tests, which we'll talk about because they can only happen over one 24-hour period. This email will go out 4 hours before the test closes. So let me go back to our online testing platform. Okay, so that is templates and communications. Now we're going to talk about tests. So you can see right here is our tests view. This is also your home view when you log into the platform. And we are going to create a test. So I am going to say create test right here. And it's going to give me this pop-up that says, would you like to create the test or assign it to someone else? So we have given you the opportunity to delegate through this platform, and we'll go over that in just a minute. But for the time being, we're going to say, I'll do it. So this is our create a test view. I'm going to just start from the top and go down, and we will go through every single one of these. You'll see that there are some that are that have the red boxes around them, and those are required fields. First, I just want to point out there is this button here that says use B recommended settings. These are recommended settings for the classroom or school level. We don't recommend that our sponsors click this to use those settings. We will have a document of B recommended settings that you can refer to, and that'll be available in the sponsor portal later this week. So the next little option here is timed test. I'm going to go ahead and click this, and that makes another box pop up here, and we will talk about that when we get to it. So here we go. First, I am going to title my test. So we're going to say, we're going to do county, example county level test. And then this isn't a required field, but the description is an opportunity for you to give a little more information to your spellers. So I'm just going to say this test determines which speller will move on to the final local B level. Excuse me. Okay. Now we are getting into the test itself. So I just want to make sure you understand the online testing platform has been designed in a way that makes it very turnkey. We want you to be able to set this up and then forget about it. which means that all of the words, the vocabulary questions, the audio pronunciations from our official pronouncer, Dr. Bailey, all of it is contained within the test. So you don't have to do any sort of inputting of words or anything like that. You simply make these decisions about your test, and then the platform will create the test for you. So first, we are going to decide for spelling questions whether you'd like them to be type in the word or multiple choice. All of the vocabulary questions you include by nature will be multiple choice. However, we recommend that you use type in the word, but you can always do an entirely multiple choice test. This is just your personal preference. Now we will go down here to type of test. So we had another great question in the survey responses about if sponsors are able to create school level tests. So the sponsor online testing platform is a separate system from the school level online testing platform. So you cannot actually, if you go to type of test, you'll see that you only have sponsor available, and that's by design. So it's a great question, but you won't be able to create school level tests in this platform. Okay, now we have test level. So we have 3 levels available to you: the district level, county level, and the final local B level. These get more difficult as you go, in the same way that the words in your final local B list are more difficult than the words in your district pronouncer guide. So I said I was going to create a county level test. So I will do that. For the district level, you can have up to 50 words on your test. So that includes 25 spelling words and 25 vocabulary words. For the county and final local B levels, we give you a bit more opportunity to customize. So you can see that you can go all the way up to 50 for spelling words or 50 for vocabulary words. Now the total number of words, the max is 50, but it does give you the opportunity to customize if you wanted to do 30 spelling words and 20 vocabulary words. And it will show you, for those of us who are more word people than math people, the total number of words will calculate for you. So there's no worries about accidentally doing too many or too few words. So I'm going to go ahead and do 25 spelling words and 25 vocabulary words. It is our recommendation that you include all 50 words that are available to you. And then we also do encourage you to use vocabulary words on your test. Not only is it an important part of our program, we've used vocabulary at the national level since 2012, and I know many of you use it in your program, typically through some kind of written vocabulary test. We also encourage it for your online tests because we find that it's a good way to differentiate scores and keep you from having to use any kind of tiebreaker. So let's see. Next, we have this little box, which is the max number of students advancing to the next level. This is just based on your program and your personal preference. And I just want to say that we do recognize that your program may look a little different this year than it has in the past, whether that means you're doing fewer levels of competition to simplify things, or maybe more levels to try to include as many kids as you can. That's okay. We're all doing the very best that we can this year, and we're just so grateful that you're able to make any kind of program available to your students this year. So since it's a county level test, I'm going to go ahead and say that only one student can advance to the next level. And then you'll see that this little box here is checked. So this says include words not on study list. And we call these unstudied words. They're words that don't appear in any of our official study lists for the year. In your final local B list, you might know them as additional words. They're the ones toward the back of the final local B list. And for the district level, if you want to use 50 words, you'll have to, actually probably for any level, if you want to use 50 words, you'll have to include unstudied words. For the district level, that will add 5 spelling and 5 vocabulary words that are unstudied, if you use both spelling and vocabulary words. For the county or final local B, that's actually going to give you half of your words unstudied. So we do recommend using words that aren't found on our study lists, not only because, once again, it could help you from needing to use a tiebreaker, but it just is more authentic to the spelling bee experience. As you probably know, In most spelling bees, you get to the point where kids haven't studied the words, and they just have to use the knowledge that they've gained through studying to figure things out. So we do encourage you to use words not included on your study list. Okay, so now we get to our test window. So this will allow you to choose a start date and an end date for your test. We do recommend that you give at least a Monday through Friday window to allow students the opportunity to take the test. You're also welcome to make it an entire week or a 2-week period. It's whatever works best for your program. So I'm going to go ahead and do this test from Monday the 25th to Friday the 29th. There is one exception. So if you decide to use this for a final local B test, those have to be taken over one 24-hour period. So instead of having 2 boxes here, you'll just have the one that you choose what date you want your final local B test to be taken on. And that's it. It'll be available from 12 a.m. in your time zone until 11:59 p.m. In your time zone. So that's for test security. It's the same reason that we don't send out our final local B lists until right before final local B season. Oh, and one more thing, you will not be able to create a final local B test until final local B season begins on February the 1st. And that's just another test security measure. Okay, so this box here, duration in minutes, showed up because I clicked this timed test box at the top. So we recommend that you give a time limit for the test. It's part of our 3-pronged approach to test integrity. For a 50-word test, we do recommend giving 30 minutes. We find that that is enough time to allow your students to take the test, but not enough to let their eyes wander or get into anything that they shouldn't be getting into. So I'm going to really quickly pull up here the other measures that we encourage for test integrity. So here we go. Oh, that's not it. There we go. Okay, test integrity. So we have a 3-pronged approach to it. Part of it is the time limit that we just went over. The next bit is the integrity pledge, which all students have to take an integrity pledge and they must acknowledge it before they can start their test. And then test proctoring. We do recommend that there be a test monitor in the room when the student takes their test, whether that's a teacher or a parent. We do know that some schools and sponsors have also used teleconferencing software the same way that we're on Zoom right now to monitor spellers. So that could be you log into Zoom and they log in and then you just watch them take the test while they do it. And then speaking of test integrity, I do just want to say that we have done our very best to disable all of the things that could keep kids or that could help kids along. So for instance, spell check is not available during the online testing platform tests. Okay, let's go back to our create test screen. So we're almost done with this. I know this is a lot of information. And like I said, we have tutorials at spellingbee.com and also this recording will be available to you. So this last little button here at the bottom is show score upon test submission. What this means is that when a student completes their test, they will see, thank you, your test is submitted. You received a 30 out of 50 as your score. They won't be able to see the words that they got correct or incorrect. That information will be available in their score report, which does not appear for parents until after the test window has closed. So that's just another test integrity piece. Okay, I think that's everything in our test here. So we are going to say create test. And then you will see that it just showed up in my test list right here. So these are all the tests that I've created, very creatively named example test for each one. I'm going to now show you the different things that you can do on this test screen. So we are going to go ahead and go into the test that I just created. We're going to say edit spellers. And you'll see it gives you the information, the test name and the test window. And then you'll see that I have no spellers assigned to it because I just created this test. So I'm going to say add speller. And when I do that, it's going to show me all of these spellers, all of my school champions who have been added by their school coordinators through school champion registration. You can even see this, this example student that I created while we were on this webinar is available now. So I am going to, excuse me, I am going to add some students. We know that many of you will likely have many spellers to choose from, so you can sort alphabetically. You can also sort by school. For those who are doing county bees, you can sort by county. And then you can also type into any of these boxes to search for specific students. So those are the 4 that I want to add, and I am going to say add. And they will show up here. There we go. They will show up here. It's going to show their status is incomplete because we just sent these tests to them, and also because the test is not open yet for them to complete the test. And then let's see. So one other communication that the system can send for you is if you hit this remind button right here, it will send out an email to the speller's parents saying, you know, don't forget that your student has a test and it ends on this day. If you accidentally add a speller that you didn't mean to, you can hit remove here, and that'll take them off of the test. And then let's see, I'm going to go back to my test list. So this is the test list. And I want to show you 2 different things. So under test details, you can say view, and this is going to show you all of the words and whether they are spelling or vocabulary that are on your test. That's just for your reference. Like I said, you don't have to do anything with them, but that's just so you'll know. And then under action, you can do 2 things, well, 3 things technically. So you can delete any of these tests. If you create an extra test or something, you can delete it. You can also, so this test that I just created, it obviously has not begun yet because we set the date for the 25th. You can say update, and it'll take you back to this test creation screen. So if you decide, you know what, actually, I just want 20 vocabulary words, you know, it'll let you do that. And then it'll update. You'll see that this test here does not have the update button. It has the extend test button. That is because this test has already begun. So today is the 12th, but this test opened for students to start taking on the 11th. And so because of that, we don't want to make changes to the test makeup because then you'll have 2 different tests that your spellers took. But if you find that you need to extend the deadline of your test, you can definitely do that just by going in here and saying, actually, I want this to end on the 15th and extend test. And then it shows up on the 15th. So, okay, let's see, we're moving along. I know this is so much information, and I know that our awesome customer service team is answering your questions in the Q&A. So be sure to include those as you have them. Now, because I know that many of you are parts of large programs with multiple levels, you can do, as we showed, up to 3 different levels through the online testing platform. That's district, county, or final local B. Now, I just want to say you can create any and all tests yourself. You do not have to delegate test creation to anyone, but for your sanity, we have made this function available to you should you need it. So I'm going to say create test. And instead of saying I'll do it and going to the create test screen like we just did, I'm going to say assign it. And so this box does 2 things. It allows you to invite district and county coordinators to create an account that will be linked to your sponsor account. And it also gives the person that you're delegating to the information that they need to create the test that you want them to. So let's go ahead and let's say that I want to delegate creation of a test to Nicole. So I'm going to add Nicole's information. Then I'm going to add myself so they know it's coming from me. I'm going to say sponsor because those are the tests that we can create in the sponsor platform. And then I'm going to select a test level. So if I want Nicole to create a district level test for me, we're going to say that up to 2 kids can move along from her test. And then you have this special instruction box. So that lets you, include details for, so let's say, please include 25 spelling words and 25 vocabulary words. Please also include unstudied words. So you can include any kind of instructions that you want in that. And then we'll also give a deadline by which you need to know the 2 students that will advance from her level. So we're going to say, Nicole, you have until January the 31st. And then I'm going to hit this send button. And what that's going to do is it's going to send Nicole an email with instructions for registering for the platform under your sponsor, and with all of these details, so that when she goes in to create tests, because her account will look similar to this, she won't see the test that you have created, just like you won't be able to see the test that she has created, but it will let her create tests the same way that you can, see results the same way that you can. And that email will give her all the details she needs to do that. Okay. Let me make sure I've hit all of the high points here. Okay, and as Nicole said at the beginning of this, if you do have district or county coordinators who are going to be using the online testing platform, she and I will be doing a webinar specifically for those coordinators. It will take place on Thursday. You should have received an invitation last week that you can forward to any coordinators, but do reach out if you don't have that link. So I think we have 2 more pieces, and then we will go to our Q&A. So we had a question, another good question come in, and here, I'll just go ahead and read it. So it said, we're looking to narrow our field from 75 spellers in the semifinal B to 20 from the championship or final B. Can the online tools take the results and help us easily determine the top 20, or will we need to conduct a series of runoffs to get to 20? So here's what we're going to do. I am going to show you how to get test results. And this is the same whether you're the one who's doing it or whether it's a district or county coordinator who has access to the online testing platform. So let's see. This test, I believe I put some dummy data in. So we're going to say edit spellers. And we just extended that deadline. So this has not finished yet, but if we pretend like it has, you'll be able to see that we have 3 spellers who completed the test, 1 who did not, and we can see all 3 of their scores here. We can also dig deeper to see specifically the questions that they got right or wrong, in case that's something that you're interested in. Now, the question that we were talking about, they are talking about going from 75 spellers down to 20. So I don't have that much data in here, but I can tell you that if you have 75 spellers in a list like this, you're not going to want to look at it in this list. So what you can do is you can say export to CSV, and that is going to download, and hopefully this will show for you, a CSV that shows all of the students who completed the test, their name, their last name, and their score. So then you can, filter this however you want to, and whoever included that question for us, you can then go from your 75 and then take the top 20 scores and move on with them however you'd like, whether that's to a county level test or whether you're going to do a final local B test, or some other way of doing your test or your competition. So I can very easily see here that Spencer Crawford got a 36 out of 50 on the test, and he is the highest. So what I'm going to do is if I were just sending through one student, I would be able to say, okay, it's very obvious to me that he had the highest score. So I'm going to hit this advanced students to the next level button. And then those spellers that are advanced to the next level of competition will be the only ones that show up in the list of students that you can add spellers for your next level of testing. So that is an easy way for you to be able to see, okay, which of my students have moved on? Well, as long as your county or district coordinator hits the advanced student to the next level button, you're golden. But let's say that you have 2 spellers with the highest score and you can only send one of them. We got a lot of really good questions from you about tiebreakers, and we do have a recommended way of breaking a tie. So as Nicole stated earlier, we will be sending each of you a final local B list this year, whether you plan to use the online testing platform or an in-person event or a virtual event. And so because of that, if you find yourself in a tiebreaker situation, we suggest that you hold an informal virtual spell down using the additional words in your final local B list. So those are words 351 and beyond. It doesn't have to be fancy. You don't have to have a lot of people besides your pronouncer, at least a judge, probably yourself will want to be a part of that. And I do want to highlight that should your pronouncer want to prepare, whether that's for just a tiebreaker bee, or if you're having an in-person event, or if you'll have a virtual event with your pronouncer on it, we do have 2 resources for them this year. So we have available, we will have available to you and your pronouncers audio pronunciation files for each word in the final local bee list. And so that way they'll be able to listen to those words that they, are maybe going through your list and find one and aren't sure how to pronounce it. Dr. Bailey and some of our editorial team members who are experts in pronunciation have gone through and recorded every single word in our final local bee list for you. We also will be hosting a webinar like this one specifically for pronouncers later in January, and we'll follow up with you about details for that. Okay. Last thing, one thing that we do not recommend for breaking ties is to set up another online test at the same level. So if you had 2 spellers get the same high score on a district level test, you should not set up another district level test to break a tie. If you do, it's very likely that some of the same words will be included on that test, and you're likely to just end up in another tie. That's why, to hopefully keep you from having ties, we encourage you to include vocabulary on your test, set up a time limit for students, and also use unstudied words. Okay. So I think that is everything. We've covered a lot in the last 45 minutes. So I'm going to turn it back to Nicole for just a few quick reminders, and then she and I are going to hop in for a Q&A.
Thank you, Tyler. That was such a wonderful and energizing overview of the OTP, and I'm sure our sponsors very much appreciate that educational session you just provided for us. So we are about to move to the Q&A portion of our webinar. If you have not yet done so, you're welcome to still submit questions you may have, and we'll either answer you live or follow up with you after this session. Before we transition, a quick update about the national finals. And the feedback you provided in our recent survey of sponsors, along with feedback we solicited from families of former national spellers, we heard one loud and clear message: whatever we need to do to make a national finals work this year, please do it. And that's exactly what we're doing. Our staff is working with virtual technology partners, our broadcast partner ESPN, venue partners, and external public health experts to solidify our plans for 2021. We will announce our plans to you later this month before the start of final local B season. And you will complete your program knowing your champion will compete in the national finals in 2021. Like most other things going on in the world these days, it will not look exactly like the B week you're used to, but we're finding opportunities in the change, and we're committed to celebrating your champions in new and meaningful ways. We look forward to getting you more details very soon. And now for some Q&A.
All right. Well, I know that I already have a question in here. It says, will our spellers be able to access the online testing platform with an iPad? And that is yes. So we've created the online testing platform with the functionality that you can take an online test with any device that has a browser. So whether that's a mobile phone or a tablet like an iPad or a desktop computer, anything with a browser, they'll be able to take an online test. And then we also have, let's see. Give me just a second. trying to find, I know there was a question that came in from our, oh, so sorry. I know there was a question that came in earlier. Okay. Would the online testing platform replace the need for a Zoom spelling bee to determine the regional winner? So the answer to that is that we have 3 different ways that you can do a spelling bee this year. So you have your online testing platform, you have an in-person event if that's available to you based on safety and health guidelines in your area. And then we have what we're calling a virtual bee. So we do have best practices for virtual bees, which when I say that, I'm thinking about a Zoom spelling bee, something that's done through teleconferencing software like Zoom or a Google Meet. And so the online testing platform is separate from a virtual spelling bee in that when we talk about virtual spelling bees, we're thinking about a spell down that happens, you know, here on Zoom, one pronouncer and your spellers that way. So you definitely can use any type of spelling bee at any level, whether that's in person, or you can go from online testing platform to a virtual bee to an in-person bee for your final. It's just however you want to customize your program this year.
Thanks, Tyler. I will jump in with a question that came in. I think we touched on this, but it is important information to know. So do all sponsors receive a final local bee list and packet, even if you were planning to use the online testing platform for the final event? The answer is yes. We will be automatically providing shipments of the final local bee list to all of our sponsor organizations. It is one of the reasons that the survey that will come out this week is important. We hope to send to you your packet of information to an address that may be different than your typical working location. We know a lot of our sponsors are still remote, so you will have the opportunity to provide us with preferred shipping information. And the other important piece with the final local bee list is our recommendation to utilize that, our additional word section in the FLBL, for potential tiebreakers that you may need to conduct after using the online testing platform to conduct a final local bee. So twofold there, but you will be receiving those final local bee shipments as well as an email from us with a PDF copy 2 weeks prior to your final bee event. So please do get us your dates as soon as possible.
Let's see. I know we had some questions coming in. We're just trying to get organized. Okay. One from Debbie, can schools join the webinar on the 14th? Some are confused about the online testing platform. Totally understand that. It's a completely new system. The answer is that no, it would be best for schools to not. As I showed you in this webinar, there are a lot of things that sponsors have access to that don't really make sense for schools. We do have tutorials available to teachers in their teacher portal when they log in at spellingbee.com, and also just on our YouTube page. So whether they're video tutorials, they're step-by-step instruction guides, you might want to point them that way. Because I think the webinar for district and county coordinators isn't going to go into as much as this one did, because you as sponsors have even more resources available to you than they do, but I think it might be a little confusing for them. So we'll keep schools out of that. And then let's see, is there any way to see my list of registered school champions without creating a test beforehand? So yes, there definitely is. And actually I can show that right now if I just make sure that this hasn't kicked me out. Okay, give me 1 second. Let me pull this up. So yes, you can see your school champions. Now I just want to say that if you're using the online testing platform, you don't need to do anything with your school registered school champion information, because the online testing platform is going to do all of that. But if you go to reports, and then you'll see under 2021 registered school champions, and that will give you a list that you can then export. So you can definitely see that. And like I said, it's something that's been available to sponsors for years now. You just might not have had the opportunity to use it. So you can definitely do that. Let's see. Can we use the testing platform to reduce our number of spellers, then do a Zoom competition for the top 10? Absolutely. So that is a great question from Deborah and Barbara. And yes, you can definitely use the online testing platform at any level. So if you wanted to start with all of your school champions taking a district level test, and then as I showed you, you can sort your results and take the top 10 to do a Zoom competition. And we do have best practices for a virtual competition through Zoom or Google Meet available to you in the sponsor portal at spellingbee.com. So that is a great idea. We love that idea. Is it best to do a final local bee on a school day so teachers can proctor and all students have internet access versus a Saturday? That's a great question. I think it really just depends on your area. But I love the idea from an access standpoint because it's so true that not every student has reliable internet access at home. So I think, that might be something to ask your school teachers about, your school bee coordinators. And I think it just comes down to making sure that you're communicating and letting your school bee coordinators know, hey, here's the date that we're having it. Please make your student available. And like I said, for a final local bee test, that's available over a 24-hour period. So, if for some reason it doesn't happen during the school day and has to happen when a kid's at home that evening, you have that 24 hours. But I think you're thinking ahead when it comes to internet access for your students, and that's great. For our final test, if we want all students to take the test at the same time, is there a way to shorten the 24-hour window? At this point, there is not. And for this, version 1 of our online testing platform for this year, there is not. It has to be, you have to give a 24-hour window. That's not to say that you can't, encourage all of your, students to take it at the same time, but it will be open for that 24-hour period. And that's really just for greatest flexibility for your students, though we do absolutely understand wanting to have all your students take it at the same time. So the answer is no, it has to be a 24-hour period, but you could send out a communication saying that everyone needs to take it at the same time, and they would be able to. Can we make more than one county test? I need at least 5 regions to more easily determine the top 3 from each region to advance to the final bee. Yes, you certainly can. So, and whether that is you making multiple county tests, or if it is you delegating to county coordinators, you certainly can. What we don't recommend is that one student take one level of a test multiple times, because it's very likely that the words will be similar or that we'll have some overlap in the words for those tests. So for instance, that's why you wouldn't want to use a county test as a tiebreaker for a county test. But you certainly, if you have 5 different groups of students that will be using tests, you can certainly create 5 different county tests.
So we have a question that is in line with, I think, all of our themes this year, flexibility. The question is, at this point, I am planning on conducting an in-person regional spelling bee. What is the deadline in case state guidelines change and we cannot run an in-person regional bee? So the individual who submitted this question is not alone in that. We have a lot of our sponsors who are still kind of flexing on their plans, hoping that they can maybe move forward with in-person, but knowing that things could change at any point. And we are here to be flexible with you. We encourage you to be as flexible as possible. We know at some point you want to commit to plans, and hopefully you can do so soon. As far as final local bee deadlines, we do ask that all final local bees are completed between the time frame of February 1st and March 27th. So really, if you can get your final bees in by the end of that March timeframe, we will be up against important deadlines. So we do need you to complete that, whether that is some type of virtual, online, or in-person event.
All right, we have a question. Should we as sponsors create tests for the school level? We have a district level competition that is essentially a statewide competition. So it goes from school to our competition. So if I'm understanding this correctly, what it sounds like is that, so the first part of the answer is no, as a sponsor, you can't create school level tests. but it sounds like you have school spelling bee champions that will then move along to your district level competition. So you would just want to create either a district, county, or final local B level, whichever level of test you want to use, and add your school bee champions to that test. So it's not, when I say, I should clarify, when I say classroom or school level online test, what I mean is what determines a school level champion. So it sounds like you will already have your school level champions, and then you can just add them to whichever kind of test you choose in the online testing platform.
So we have a request for the recording from this webinar. We absolutely plan to make that available. Hopefully later this week, you should be able to log into your sponsor portal on spellingbee.com, and we will post this link to the webinar for you to refer back to. It should be within the online testing platform section for your benefit.
Okay, we have, can you explain test proctoring in more detail for a final local B with students taking the test within a 24-hour period? Do they have to be at home, at school? If they take it at home, what does test proctoring look like for a sponsor since they have 24 hours to take the test? So good question. When it comes to test proctoring, what we are talking about is either a teacher or a parent, or in some cases, even a sponsor being able to monitor someone taking their test. So the answer is that they don't have to be at school or at home. It really is just your personal preference. So like we were talking earlier about, having a final local B test during school hours so that teachers would be able to proctor. If they take it at home, what does test proctoring look like for a sponsor since they have 24 hours to take the test? So this goes back to when we were creating a test and we chose timed test. So the idea is that for a final local B, a student will have 24 hours, will have any time within a 24-hour window to begin the test. But then if you create a time limit, which we definitely recommend, they will only have 30 minutes to start and finish that test. So basically, it doesn't matter if the student is taking it at 9 a.m. or at 12 p.m. When they start the test, they will only have the amount of time that you have set, which we encourage doing 30-minute time limit for a 50-question test. And also, I'd just like to say that we have had teachers come to us saying that they've had success with doing test proctoring through a video conferencing platform like we're using right now. So the way that would work is that, you would set up a time with the student for when they would begin their test. And then before they began it, they would go into a Zoom, meeting room with you, and then you would be able to view them as they took the test. That's not to say that you would be able to see the questions or anything, but you would be able to monitor, see if they're looking in different directions or anything like that. So there are a couple different ways that you can proctor a test, and a couple different ways based on, the safety guidelines that are in your area currently.
So we have a request for me to resend the invitation for the county and district level webinar that will take place this Thursday. I am more than happy to do so. I cannot actually see who submitted that request. So if you would like to follow up with me after this, at my email address, nicole.ditto@scripps.com, I am more than happy to resend anyone who may need that. I know sometimes those messages accidentally land in spam folders. I believe we sent that out last Thursday, if that helps anyone for reference, but very easy for us to resend if needed.
We can also include it with the email going out about the sponsor survey that you'll receive tomorrow morning. So that's an easy thing that we can add to that as well. Okay, we have our online B is January 14th through the 15th, and we have some schools finishing their Bs on January 14th. They are aware of the deadline, but would still like to participate. Can I add a few students to the online B on the 14th to take it on the 15th? In other words, can you add students mid-test? Yes, you can add students mid-test. And then I also would just like to point out again that once a test has been started, you cannot change the makeup of the test, but you can extend the deadline. So if for some reason you find yourself in a situation where you want to extend it past the 15th, you can really easily do that. But yes, you can add spellers to a test during the test window. Let's see. Do we still need 3 judges to observe the OTP? That's a great question. And when I say OTP, I mean online testing platform. I would say that no, you probably don't need that kind of manpower behind, proctoring a test. I think that a teacher is a great option. The video conferencing monitoring that we've talked about is a great option, especially if you're talking about doing some kind of proctoring during your 24-hour final local B window. Being able to include the judges that typically take part in your final local B and give them a way to be involved this year, that kind of teleconferencing monitoring is a great way to include them. But no, you don't need 3 people. We do not recommend that you need 3 people. You certainly can have multiple people monitor, but we just recommend that you have at least one proctor the test. When will we get best practices for a virtual spelling bee? So you should already have them in the sponsor portal. So we have, let's see, let me make sure that I am correct here. Yeah, so you'll see when you log into your sponsor portal at spellingbee.com, there's a link called competition guides, and that's basically where we have put all of the resources for a district, county, or final local B that is not part of the online testing platform. That of course has its own menu item. If that is not already in the online, if that is not already part of your sponsor portal, you will be able to find virtual best practices by the end of the week within there. We have this webinar that we're putting up there. We have a couple other resources for creating an online test that we're going to put up there. So you will have new materials by the end of the week. And then I think we had something else come in. Okay. How do I know what words to use as a tiebreaker in person if all words were used for the online test, but we selected the box to use the maximum number of words? That's a great question. So if you're doing an in-person tiebreaker or a Zoom tiebreaker, if you're using your final local B list as a tiebreaker, our phenomenal editorial team has created all of the lists this year to be completely separate, so you don't have to worry about any overlap. So our recommendation is that you use the additional words, which are 351 and on, just because those are not words that your students have had a chance to study. So you'll probably have a better time or an easier time getting to one champion through a tiebreaker that way. Yeah, so that you don't have to worry about overlap between words that students have seen in the online testing platform and any words that appear in your final local B list.
So I know for those of you who might be looking at the time, we're up against the hour mark. Our team is still happy to hang back. We have questions coming in both behind the scenes that are being answered and here on this webinar. So we will stick around. We understand for those of you who need to drop off, you're welcome to do so. You can access this recording later this week, but we will be here for a little bit longer.
Okay, another good question. How can schools utilize the online testing platform? Many are struggling to because they're all virtual. Completely understand that. So we actually have created the online testing platform to assist those schools that have been virtual this year. So in the same way that we've provided the sponsor side with templates and tutorials and everything like that, schools have the same resources available to them, obviously customized for the school experience. So the way that schools can use the online testing platform is by creating a test, and they do that based on grade level. And then sending out a communication instructing all of their parents to create test accounts for their students. And then once that takes place, the teacher can assign whatever level test to the students. And as we said before, we've created the platform to be available for use for anyone on a browser. So whether that's a desktop, a mobile phone, an iPad, or other tablet, we've really tried to make access as easy as possible, just knowing that students have different resources available to them. So I would just say that it's definitely usable for students and schools, and the fact that schools are all virtual shouldn't matter, because they can take their school level test, and then the teacher can determine who their champion is, and then they can use school champion registration, and it just keeps going like that.
Another great question. Can we require that a teacher proctor rather than having a parent proctor a test? Absolutely. You know, there's not a one size fits all situation this year. So in some areas, it may make sense for the student to complete a test at school for multiple reasons. As Tyler mentioned, maybe it's an access issue. Maybe it's a comfort level with the educator versus the parent administering that test. But both options are available in your area. And you may not have a standard across the board. Some students may take the test at home and others may be in the school, but that is something that you are welcome to determine depending on what works best for your local bee program.
We have another great question about virtual bees. So if we have a virtual final bee, do we still need judges? And the answer to that is yes. You might actually end up finding that you need a few more than you would. So for instance, in the guidelines or best practices that we've put together, we have created a role called platform manager. So as you can tell, we have a lot of questions coming in. There's a chat function through Zoom. You've got, you can mute and unmute participants. So you might actually find that you need more people than you would if you were just having an in-person bee. But we do definitely recommend that you still have a pronouncer, at least 2 judges, a record keeper, and basically you're just running your spelling bee like you would in person, except it happens to be over Zoom, just the way that, all of us have done with meetings and weddings and all sorts of things like that over the last year. So definitely still need judges because the competition administration should be very similar between a virtual bee and an in-person bee. Okay, is there a sample test just to gain familiarity with the online testing platform? Yes, there definitely is. And I can actually, I think if I'm still logged in here, I can actually show you really quickly what that looks like. Okay, so this is your home page. When parents log in to allow their students to take tests, they have a very similar view, except this will show the test, the one test that they have available to take. They obviously won't see all of your tests. But you can see right here that it says parents who register for the online testing platform have access to a sample test that their students can take to familiarize themselves with the platform. It does note that this sample test includes only multiple choice questions. So we do not have a sample test that includes the type in a word feature, but this does allow students to see a sample test.
Message.
You see here Dr. Bailey's lovely voice and and this is letting me type in a word. Oh, that's odd. Okay.
Message.
Maybe our awesome development team has given us other options for a sample test and I didn't realize. So yes, there is a sample test and then you can take it like this. And this is what the test will look like for your students if you use type in the word. And
0.
And I can sit here and try to take this test, but I'll embarrass myself. So I'm going to stop sharing now. Okay, and we've got, are you able to send the district/county webinar info directly to coordinators we've already entered? Yes. So that is why we required registration for the district and county webinar, because we obviously have all of your information, but we don't have your district and county coordinators information. So we now have a list of their email addresses. So they will be getting a reminder email from us about the webinar. So any coordinators who are registered will receive reminder about the webinar, a link to the webinar, and then we'll also provide the recording after the fact to all of them.
I think we have another question coming in. I'm just waiting to view it.
If I want the top 50 spellers to advance to the next level, would I set the max number to advance to 50 during create test? Yes, that is correct. That is exactly how it works. we know that some of you have very large programs, so absolutely, that is how you would do it. How do I know if I have district or county coordinators? So that really just depends on your program. And I don't know, Nicole, if you have additional insight on this one that you wanted to give, but I will say that that's just the titling that we've put on it to help ourselves sort of understand the different levels. You might have, I don't know, maybe like a city or you looked like you were going to say something.
Yeah, I mean, I think a really quick high level way to break this down is that spelling bee programs start at the school level. So you have your schools that enroll to participate in your local program. You are, of course, are the sponsor. You are considered the final bee level. When we talk about final local spelling bees, that is the speller who will advance to our national level event. And then for some of our bigger programs, there's these in-between levels, or what we would consider an intermediary level of competition. So if your school winners are advancing directly to your final bee, you have a very straightforward structure. But if you have a district or county level of competition, those words can kind of be interchangeable. Different areas call it different things. Like Tyler said, it doesn't have to be district or county, but it is an intermediary level of competition that's taking place after the school bee and before that final bee. That would be how you determine if you have what we consider a district level. In our online testing platform, we do designate between district and county, just for your reference. If you are setting up one of those tests, the county would be considered more difficult in the word selection. So if you only have one level of competition that's taking place after the school bees, but before your final bee, and you want a little bit more of a challenge, I would encourage you to select that county level test. But there is the district level option as well. And some sponsors have very large qualification structures and may need to go from school to district to county to finals. So it's very unique to each area.
Okay, we got a question. Will you be able to provide the written Q&As from this session with answers? That's a great idea. And we can definitely put that together and send it out with the recording of this webinar and the survey and everything else that we've told you to look out for from us. And then I have another question. I have county and district winners who are eligible to compete in the final local bee, not school champions. So I don't need to collect school champions information. Is there a way to collect the information for county and district champions, or specifically only the approved winners moving on to the final local bee? That's a great question. So I have been told by our customer service team that you can reach out to us via spellingbee.com/contact, and they will be and tell us which schools you want to advance spellers, and they can allow those schools to only register the champions from the schools that you're looking for. So that's a little niche, but whoever left that question, just reach out to us via spellingbee.com/contact, and we'll be able to get that.
So we have a question about recording the final local spelling bee. When would we be able to publish that footage? So in this instance, I want to refer you back to the 2021 sponsorship agreement. I don't have that up on my screen right now since this question just came in, or else I would share that and give you the exact breakdown. But that is something you can reference in the 2021 sponsorship agreement. We have a table that states if your bee is occurring during these dates, this is when you're able to share footage of the event. The reason we have these restrictions in place is to protect the integrity of our words and our competition in this digital day where everything's kind of out there on the internet. You know, these kids are savvy, they can go out there and see what's happening in other bees, and we want to try to prevent that. So we thank you for partnering with us in that. We know people are excited to be able to share footage from their bee, and what we can encourage is you to share highlights from your event. Certainly some people partner with local news stations and want to share a story about the local bee that took place in their area. You can share highlights, but we would just ask you to again refer back to that sponsorship agreement for the approved dates to be able to actually share a link or full footage. If you have any questions about that, please do follow up with me separately, and I'd be happy to walk you through that process.
Okay, we have another question. Is there a deadline date for the school bee? Does it make a difference if the school bee is live or virtual for the deadline? So the school bee deadline is something that you set based on your specific program. If you remember at the very beginning, we were going through school champion registration, and that is where, setting up school champion registration in your program specific form. And that in your program specific form is where you can add any kind of deadline for your school bee. It does not make a difference from our perspective if that's live or virtual. That's just a date for you to set based on when the next level of competition needs to happen and how much time you need in between to plan. So, can we manually enter test subject spellers or coworkers to run a rehearsal bee? So you cannot through through your account, if you wanted to do test spellers, and I assume you're talking about doing a rehearsal bee in the online testing platform. If you wanted to do something like that, you could have them register as students. So not registering the way that you did by going in at spellingbee.com and logging into your sponsor portal and clicking the register button. You could do that. I would suggest that you maybe get in touch with us at spellingbee.com/contact. There might be an easier way to have a test in a way that you could test it without needing to go through a lot of trouble. So for instance, to put in this dummy data, I had to create 8 different speller accounts and take tests and that kind of thing. So there might be a better way. So I would suggest reaching out to us. Do we have a template email to send to students if they didn't make it to the final virtual bee based on their online testing platform score? Yes. So let me, I probably should just leave this up all the time if I, okay, there we go. So I will show you really quickly. That is part of our templates. So we have all of our communication templates here, and each different level has you can send out emails telling them about their score reports. And then we also have emails for the champions of your different level Bs. So this would be the report that you send. Let me make sure that's right. So send to parents. Yes. So for instance, this is if you give a district level spelling bee and you want to share your results, you can put all of your information in these bracketed text boxes. And here at the bottom, you would include, here's the name of the person who's moving forward and we wish them luck and that kind of thing. And you can always edit these and add to these based on your own program, but this is just kind of a nice template of just like the bones of what you would need to send out in that instance. So let's see. Okay, do we have any more questions? And I know that our customer service team has been answering your questions throughout. And as one of you suggested, we will be sending out the answers to a lot of their questions, or a lot of the good questions that you submitted and our team answered. If we set the final local B test to let only one advance from the previous level, what happens if there is a tie? So in that case, that is when you'd want to use a tiebreaker, which we recommend you do a virtual spelling bee, spell down through Zoom, use the final local bee list that you'll be receiving from us 2 weeks before your final local bee date. And then just with your pronouncer and at least, a judge and yourself, figure out who to send on to the next level in case of a tie. That works at any level, but especially if you're at your final local B level and you're trying to get down to one champion. How does the teacher/school champion get notified of how to access the district's level test? So that all goes back to school champion registration. As we kind of went through before, the school champion registration system talks to the online testing platform. So as long as you have gone into the online testing platform, you, the sponsor, have registered, have created a test, and then when you click that add spellers button, it's going to do two things. One, it's going to bring in all of the spellers who already have online testing platform accounts, and it's going to add them to your program. And two, any spellers who do not have online testing platform accounts, it is going to automatically email them instructions to create an account. Then when those spellers show up for you to add, that is one of the automatic emails that will go out from the system. So when you add a speller to a test, they will automatically get an email saying, "Dear speller, you've been added to sponsor programs, district level test. You can take the test between these dates, and here's the link." So that's just one of the two instances of automatic emails that will go out from the system. Okay, I understand you don't recommend having students retake the same level test as a tiebreaker, but if our county test and final local B are the same level, could I start with the county level test, and then if there is a tie, have students retest with the final local B test? If there isn't a tie, will our champion be able to advance to Scripps even if they won using the county level test? That is a great question, and the answer is yes. So if you do not plan to use all three levels of the online testing platform, and you're in a situation where you give a county level test and you need to do a tiebreaker, as long as you are not using that next level up, that final local B test, you can certainly use it as a tiebreaker. And if there isn't a tie, but the county level, you use the county level test in place of your, as your final test before going to Scripps, it is absolutely yours champion is welcome and qualified for the national finals. There's no, we've just delineated it district level, county level, final local B level, but you know your program. And so whatever you think works best for you is great for us. So, okay. Do we as sponsors have access to see what schools will be using the online platform? In our area, they go directly from school to the final B. I would like more information of what schools have access to better lead them. Okay, great question. At this point, we do not have any sort of report that tells you which schools have used the online testing platform and which have not. However, for your school champion to go from school to the final B, you can use school champion registration. And if you plan for your final B to be an online test, you have to use school champion registration. So it really doesn't matter if you had some schools that use the online testing platform or some that were able to do in-person events in the classroom. They will all be able to register for your final B by using school champion registration.
I think just to add on to that as well, you may have a combination of schools using either an online test, if that works best for them, or some schools in your area that are able to proceed with conducting in-person events. So it may not be the same standard for every school in your area. We just encourage you to allow them that freedom to figure out what works best, as long as they ultimately name a champion, they have some options this year. So it ties into the flexibility piece and the not one size fits all this year.
Okay. Will access to the next level test automatically appear to the teachers/school champions when they sign into their online account, or do they find out how to access the test only after a sponsor addresses them? Is that done by email? Does Scripps automatically send an email to them when the test becomes available? So yes, so everything from the sponsor level, whether that's district, county, that's everything that we're considering sponsor level, all has to do with once you've gone into the sponsor side of the online testing platform. Like, we're not sending things to them unless you have initiated them. So yes, we do send an email automatically from our online testing platform when you have added spellers to a test or when you create a test, and then it brings in all of the school champions through school champion registration. But we don't automatically like assign a district test to school champions. That is up to you. So once a school spelling bee coordinator has registered their champion through school champion registration, the next step depends on you. You can either export all of those contacts and send them all information to do a virtual spelling bee, or you can create a test in the online testing platform and it will automatically bring those spellers in. It's really whatever works next for your program. Okay, we've been talking at you for a while.
I think we do have another question popping up, so
Sure.
let's hang tight for just a second.
Yes, so if our regional spelling bee is going to be virtual, do we need to load school champions into the online testing platform? The answer to that is no. So if you are not planning to use the online testing platform for any level of your competition, then no, you do not need to. You don't need to use school champion registration if you don't want to. We think it's a great tool regardless, but you don't have to you don't have to register in the online testing platform. You don't have to add spellers to it or anything like that. If you plan to use the online testing platform at any level of your competition, then you will need to set up school champion registration and be sure that your school champions get added to the platform.
And the school champion registration tool has been around for quite some time. Many of our sponsors used it prior to this year. The only new addition this year is the fact that it is a requirement if you're utilizing the online testing platform at any level. Those two programs talk to each other. So we do need you to please set up school champion registration through your program form if you plan to have OTP at any level. But not a requirement, as Tyler said, for virtual events or in-person bees, but very much a handy tool for you to collect which spellers at the school level are winning and advancing as champions. So something to consider even if you're not utilizing the online testing platform.
Okay, and we have, if a school does an oral test, how does that student register for their district level online testing platform test? Great question. So I think we talked a little bit earlier today that it doesn't matter what kind of test the school uses, whether they decide to have an in-person bee or they do something virtual through Zoom, which we've seen, or if they do an online test. If you are planning to use the online testing platform for your district level test, which is in this question, then you can set up school champion registration and teachers access school champion registration through their teacher account at spellingbee.com. So it's completely separate from the online testing platform. So all teachers in your program will have access to fill in the school champion registration form as long as you set it up in your program specific form. So it does not matter how the school has decided to get their champion, as long as they register their champion using the school champion registration form.
Oh, I like this next question. Will the online testing platform be available in future years? So we love that you're already thinking about the future of this, and absolutely yes, this is a resource that we would like to continue to offer even when, fingers crossed, we return to normal next year. We just thank everyone for being patient with us in this first year of really executing on this online testing platform. We had to pivot pretty quickly. No one anticipated this. It's been a silver lining to actually be able to have this access. I think it will be something that some sponsors will choose to adopt as a qualification structure moving forward. So yes, to get back to the original question, we do anticipate offering the online testing platform moving forward. And we'll continue to improve on that process. So we also welcome feedback along the way. Our team is really, really hard at work on just making sure this tool is a success. So again, thank you for being patient with us in this first year of having that up and running.
All right, I will jump on this one. You're good. Oh, you got some feedback there. Okay, I delegated test creation to several counties in our program, but not all. Will those counties that don't use the OTP have to fill out their school champion registration anyway? So the way, what I will So first of all, the online test or the school champion registration is done at the school level. So I'm not sure, you might have county coordinators who are specifically at different schools. So it's done through the school spelling bee coordinator, through their teacher portal, through logging in at spellingbee.com. That's how school champions are registered. So the answer is that no, if you are not planning to have any of those spellers take part in the online testing platform, any of the spellers in those other counties, at any level, then no, they technically don't need to. I would recommend that you have all of your school champions sign up through school champion registration if you're having any of them, because like I showed earlier, you can easily export all of that information. And it probably would be an easier way to keep everybody together, although you seem to have separate ways for doing your program, and that's completely fine. But I would just recommend that if you're having any sign in through school champion registration, that you have all of them do it. And then those other students simply won't use the online testing platform if you don't want them to.
Okay, so we have a question that I know is tough and some of our local sponsors are up against on a yearly basis. With competitive parents, how do we deal with complaints about bee administration or other spellers? Unfortunately, that just seems to be part of competitions these days, whether it's spelling bee, sporting events. I'm sure many of you have experience with that just through the past years of in-person bees. And we want to let you know that our office stands behind your decision and your handling of the situation. So we kind of use the standard line that the decisions of local bee officials are final. It would just say, as you prepare for your competitions, make sure you're prepping your teams, your judges, your pronouncer, the people who are overseeing your competitions, so you're aligned on how to handle difficult situations. We have our rules for local spelling bees that are available to you, so I definitely would encourage you to familiarize yourself with those rules just to better prepare as you are going into competitions. Don't let complaints derail you or discourage you in any way. It is something that happens at competitions, unfortunately, but we really do trust you and we empower your team to make those tough decisions together.
All right, Nicole, I think we're ready for you to wrap us up. I believe we've gotten through all of our questions.
Yeah, how did 90 minutes fly by? This has been fun. And we thank everyone who's been able to hang with us. There were quite a few of you who joined us today. That really means a lot that you've made time in your schedule and just in your year to work through the bee program. So we cannot say thank you enough. This will conclude our time today. And as we mentioned, we'll make a recording of today's session available. The plan is later this week, so you can find that in the sponsor portal to refer back to. As a reminder, we will host the webinar this Thursday. It's scheduled for 7 p.m. Eastern time for the district and county level coordinators. You're welcome to forward that invite. We will also resend that link and make that available if you need to pass that along, or you can reach out to me with those questions. And then please, please, please be on the lookout tomorrow for the survey that we talked about. There will be important information that we're trying to collect for your final bees. We know some of you are still working on plans, but anything that you can provide to us will really help us to support you as we move towards local bee season. Remember, the deadline on that is next Monday. And then, as always, just feel free to reach out to us when needed. Our team is here to support your area's bee journey, and we really appreciate you hanging with us. I think 2021 will be a great year. And thanks again to all of you. Have a great day.